Hello YouTube viewers. Today we are beginning our upgrades of our 2013 Honda Fit Sport. Today we're going to start part 1 of our stage 1 upgrades. What we're doing for that, part 1 is rear sway bar. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a 2013 Honda Fit Sport manual transmission. As you can see, we've already done the first step of our stage 1 upgrade, which is our vent visors, and they actually look really good. Haven't done anything with the exhaust yet. Now you can see the vent visors better. As you can see, totally stock. Nothing's even been touched. Okay, so let's get this thing in the garage and get the back wheels off, and then we can start putting the rear sway bar. Okay, so we've got the Fit in the garage, got it up on stands, and got the rear wheels off. Okay, here's a better view of the car up on jack stands. Now I caution you, please use the factory jack locations for your stands. You don't want to tear up the body of your car. And let's look at the tools we're going to use. First, you're going to have a rubber mallet just in case you need to break anything loose, and a 14mm socket for the shocks. And you're also going to use a 6mm hex bit and a 17mm socket. And the hex bit fits right into the head of the bolt. It comes with the sway bar. Let's get under there and start taking off the shock. So I've got my 14mm socket. Okay, as we get under here, you'll notice you've got the brake drum, and then the shock, and then the spring from left to right, and right at the bottom of the shock is where that 14mm bolt is. And it's actually kind of cool. They have the nut is built into the assembly, so you do not need a second wrench to take it out. These things are usually about 50 foot-pounds, so you shouldn't have to break it loose, but you might. Okay, here you can see I actually added a jack underneath the spring cradle just so that it doesn't drop down once I take this bolt out. That's something you might want to do as well as support that spring cradle. And you notice I've got it most of the way out, and I'll get started again. Okay, from here you can adjust the jack a little bit, kind of find the sweet spot, and you'll get it to where you can pull it out by hand. Hopefully I'll start making that adjustment here pretty soon. And that probably does it. Okay, now I'm going to lower the jack. And we'll come back to the left side again and look at the brake lines. Okay, here's a view of the right side of the car, and we're going to get started doing the same thing. And get the jack in place. Especially since we don't have the left side supported, it's important to support the right side at this point. That way it doesn't drop down suddenly or hurt you, anything like that. Like I said, these things are usually about 50 foot-pounds, so you should be able to break them loose by hand, but if not, you always have your rubber mallet. Probably would have been a little bit easier if I'd been supporting it with the jack at this point. Sometimes it helps to take the tension off that bolt, make it come out a lot easier. Ooh, just pop the socket off. Hopefully it didn't strip it, huh? That was taking a while. Find the sweet spot and make it a lot easier to pull it out. Look at that. Okay, we'll let that go ahead and drop down. We're not going to drop it down all the way because we still got to do the brake lines, but we'll let it take tension off. Okay, so let's get up and work on those brake lines. Now each side has two places that you have to take the lines off. I'll show you that. Okay, right there at the top of the spring and the bottom of the spring, you can see where I'm grabbing. That's just a little grommet that's in a V-shaped piece of metal. Comes out pretty easily. Just grab onto it and give it a tug. Okay, let's go over and do the other side real quick. Okay, and you'll notice because I'm not supporting this side, the line is actually under a little bit of tension. So we're going to take those out and free that up real quick. Okay, let's go ahead and bring the jack the rest of the way down, that way we can access the springs. Okay, now just give this thing a little push down, the cradle I mean, and it should begin to loosen up the spring for you. And there's just basically a knob at the top of the spring and a knob at the bottom of the spring, or I guess on the brackets anyway. The springs have some rubber fittings that fit around those knobs. All you have to do is pop them out and they come out pretty easily. Okay, here you can see I've got the springs out. What I ended up having to do is put some pressure on top of the brake drum to get it pushed down far enough to break it loose. But once the bottom became unseated, it was really easy to pull out. And that you got to make sure that you have those lines unhooked. If not, you're not going to have enough room to pull it down. All right, let's look at the stuff that came in with our Progress Technology SwayBar. We've got the SwayBar itself, instruction manual, 2 stickers, an advertisement. We've got 6 bolts, 6 nuts, and 6 washers. I'll show you how that goes on in just a second. I'll get that put on a little bit, and then you can see the rest of the install. Okay, this is it. Actually in place at least. It's not fully installed, but it is at least in place. You can see the orientation of the bar itself. The plate goes toward the top and the bar is toward the bottom. You don't want to reverse that and flip the bar over. It's not going to fit correctly. Okay, so let's get our 17mm socket and our 6mm hex bit and start cranking these things down. You can see they're pretty well threaded, so it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to tighten these things down. And you might have wanted to move that spring out of the way. It kind of looks like getting in the way. Okay, we're not going to tighten these down all the way yet. We're going to come back with a torque wrench and tighten them down to 40 foot-pounds. Get rid of that leaf and let's go on to the other side. Now, I will tell you, while you're holding that thing up there to put the bolts in, it does help to have a second person, but it is possible to do it by yourself. So I bump the camera. At least you got a good shot of the beautiful Texas weather. Okay, you also notice that I worked in a circle. I did back to front on the driver's side and front to back on the passenger side. Really need to get a better or different look at this. Let's move that spring out of the way, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier. Okay, at the bottom of that spring on the boot, I want you to notice that nipple that comes down. You'll either want to cut that off. Um, the hole that it does go back into has a bolt in it now, so it's not going to go in there the same way, although leaving it on there does not affect the way it works. You can cut it off if you like to look prettier when you get the spring back on. Okay, right here I thought I might have cross-threaded this bolt, so turns out I did not cross-thread the bolt, so that was a big plus, and I'm getting that thing back on right now. Okay, hopefully I'm about done. Okay, that looks better. You know, we've got all 6 bolts on. You can see where that nipple is supposed to go. There's now a bolt there, so it's not going to go back in, obviously. The driver's side does not have that, actually. Again, you can see the orientation of the bar itself in the car, with the bar on the bottom side and the plates on the top. Okay, here I got the spring back in on the driver's side. I do not have it in on the passenger side, so I can show you how to do that. They just fit right back over the knobs at the top and the bottom. I'm going to center this thing a little bit, get it right back to where it was from the factory. And I'm going to try and seat it on the lower knob. Okay, so we'll start trying to put in the passenger side spring. Now there's quite a bit of tension on this one. I'm having some trouble getting the rubber boot past the knob. Okay, let's raise this up and reconnect the shock. Okay, looks like I'm looking for my the rest of my jack handle. This is not fun without the handle. Alright, looks like I got it. This should go quite a bit easier. My dad always used to say, work smart, not hard. Okay, we're putting the bolt back in and we're going to get our 14 millimeter socket back out. Yeah, if you don't get the shock rotated correctly, the bolt has a hard time biting. So I'm looking for my socket and we'll get it going. I'm really glad I didn't strip out that bolt earlier. Or the head of it anyway. I'm having trouble having it bite in on the other side. Not entirely sure why it's not going in all the way, other than the rotation of the shock itself may not be correct. Or at least perfectly correct. It is taking a while. There we go. There we go. Okay, let's bring down the jack. We'll move it over to the other side. Okay, you can see I've already got the jack there to support it. And let's raise it up and get our bolt put back in. This side should actually be much easier because the right side is already done and it's already supported, so it does help the left side a little bit. Make sure that hole in the shock lines up to the hole on the bolt assembly. we'll tighten it down. This one's biting a lot better, so it shouldn't take as long. Okay, we've got the driver's side done. Let's pull the jack. Okay, and let's look over the sway bar again. And again, don't forget before you put your springs back on, torque those sway bar bolts down to 40 foot-pounds. I forgot to talk about doing that. You can see the orientation of the orientation of the sway bar with the bar on the lower side and the plates on the upper side. The bolts drop in from the top, and on the underside you have the bolt, the washer, and then the nut. Okay, and we need to remember to do the brake lines again. Let's get under there and do that. These are super easy to put back on. Again, they just have this little notch in them that you slip around that piece of metal, so it makes it super easy. Anyway, next thing we're going to do is put the wheels back on and get this thing off the jack stands and take it out for a test drive. And I will see you then.
Welcome back. We are getting ready to take this fit back out on the road and test out this rear sway bar. Let's get going. Okay, so with the rear sway bar, what kind of results are we really expecting? We're expecting to be able to keep better traction in the rear end at a little bit higher speeds. I can tell you what I feel right now is the back end is slightly heavier. The one thing that I am concerned about is adding some oversteer to the Honda Fit. The Fit is actually pretty neutral as far as steering goes and everyday driving, but it has a tendency to oversteer when you let off the gas during a corner. I'm willing to bet that that's actually going to be amplified slightly. It actually feels quite a bit different in the rear end. Yeah, I'm liking this. Let's get out on the road and get some real testing. Okay, so what I'm expecting again is that as I'm turning, I should be able to maintain the throttle and keep traction better than I did before. And if I let off the gas mid-turn, I'm expecting to have a little bit of oversteer. Actually, more oversteer than I already did. That was fantastic. Yeah, so that shows it definitely does add to the traction in the back end during its corner. The truth of the matter is I should have been squealing when I made that corner a little bit in the rear end, but it wasn't. It looks like it's definitely helping. Let's get up here and make a U-turn. Definitely feel there is a little bit of added oversteer when you let off the gas in the corner. Alright, we're going to turn around right here. So I can time this correctly. That's actually really good. It should have been. One thing I've noticed is there's a whole lot less body roll. Like during that U-turn, I should have felt like I was coming out of my seat almost. But it definitely did not feel that way now. So there's a definite improvement in body roll. Okay, so again, it feels a little bit heavier in the back. It did add a little bit of oversteer when you let off the gas, like I said, but it also definitely kept traction in higher speed corners. Especially that U-turn was more impressive than usual. Okay, so I guess we'll be done with this SwayBar series. And join us next time. We're going to put some EBC green stuff brakes on the car and hopefully get a little bit better stopping power out of this. The green stuff is not that they're top of the line, but it is still good stuff, and we're going to give it a shot. And look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.